All right, so today I want to expand on training elite golfers. What are the components? What are we doing? What are we looking for? Because there's a lot of, quite honestly, crazy information out there. Things you see on Instagram, things you see on YouTube. And I think like you see a lot of little pieces like, oh, this is a good golf exercise, or this kind of looks like golf, or hey, they're standing on one leg, they're working on balance, or they're on something unstable. And these are all exercises, but they lack context because they need to be applied to the appropriate person at the appropriate time in the appropriate part of their workout. So what are the big rocks? Like what matters? So these are three really basic questions. And I wrote training the elite golfer. This could be a junior golfer. This definitely applies to junior golfers, professional golfer, or athlete, really any athlete. You just sub out golf swing and talk about whatever they're, whatever they do in their sport, their pitching motion, their throwing motion, how they run, do they need to cut, all those other little things. But the big important pieces, the simple questions, do they move well? That's one of the first things we're going to assess. Obviously, if they've got any injuries, that's going to be something we want to start with, maybe refer out, maybe deal with. Are these patterns, where are these injuries coming from? That's kind of a whole different topic. But really just that essentially, our basic tests, our Titleist Performance Institute screen, functional movement screen, all that fun stuff. Do they have adequate flexibility? Do they have adequate range of motion where they need it? Can they stabilize areas of their body they need to? Can they do simple stuff, especially for the juniors? Are they athletic? Can they jump? Can they crawl? Can they sprint? Can they change direction? Do they look ridiculous when they do a split squat? Yes or no? Because we see a ton of that. We've got some very specialized athletes that really struggle with some of these very general concepts. So that's really the first thing we're looking at. Some sort of screen. Do they move well? Because what tends to happen too sometimes in this category is we sort of lose sight of that, of what is enough good movement. This doesn't need, their sport may not dictate that they need to do crazy ranges of motion. So this is always in context of what their sport demands, what their body demands, and what does their swing need. In this case, we're talking about golfers. So different golf swings need different ranges of motion. You might need different ranges of motion in different parts of your body based on what other parts of your body do. So sometimes we'll see people with not a ton of hip motion, but they've got crazy range of motion in their thoracic spine and to some degree their lumbar spine. So they can make good looking golf swings. But, and this may be if they're an elite player, we may not want to mess with that too much, but we do want to monitor it. Second piece, are they strong? This is probably the most misunderstood thing when we train golfers, is that golfers are just like any other athletes to some degree. Strength matters. And again, strength is very contextual, because when we talk about strength, we talk about different ways we test it. We may test it via, like for instance, the Proteus. We may do power testing. We may do vertical jump testing. So there's two components to it. Can they create a lot of force? And can they create that force quickly? And then I guess really, can they create it in the directions we want to in a more specific sense to their golf swing? So those are really important. You'll see a lot with junior golfers. They're very good at moving quickly, creating a lot of acceleration, but there's not a lot of force behind it. So it's almost like if they're a car, they can get up to speed like a Miata. Like they don't really have a whole good engine, but they can kind of crank through the gears, which is fine. But as they get older, we want to be able to create a lot more force. So that's going to be a key component of that are they strong thing. So we might use the Proteus to test that, and that will dictate their training program on how they move weight. But let me be very clear. Golfers need to be strong. This seems like something that should be fairly obvious. And that needs to be a crucial piece of their training program. It's amazing how often that is skipped in lieu of exercises that are really just warm-ups that look like golf fitness. And when you miss that, you are going to probably break down. You're going to have other issues. You're not going to be as efficient in your swing. You're not going to be athletic. The best players in the world, and I've been lucky enough to see how a lot of them train, don't do crazy specific weird golf exercises. They do the big exercises. Now, the other area, the final area where some of this might come in, what does their swing need? This is where we kind of have these like little exercises in the middle that may be swing specific. So we may, as part of a warm-up, work on something that's going to fight a tendency of theirs. So for instance, if they tend to rotate their chest too early, we may do a drill. We may do a drill that's focusing on them not doing that. So we may talk a little bit of swing integration, but it's very important to understand you're actually going to cause more problems than not if you don't understand and respect their own individual golf swing, and you start trying to do drills that just look like golf swings. Because these are very, very finely tuned elite athletes, because I see a lot of videos out there where people are doing exercises that I know that player's golf swing, and they're being coached in a way that actually runs counter to the way that person swings the golf swing. So best case scenario, nothing happens is kind of best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you may be doing something that's not improving their golf swing, and just they may feel it looks like a golf swing. So what does their swing need? And again, this also relates back to, do they move well? But it's important when we design the program for anybody, particularly junior golfers, is we take care of the fundamental pieces first. Before they're a golfer, they just need to be a strong, well-moving athlete. So we don't need to get into very cute, specific golf exercises with junior golfers who just simply aren't strong enough. They don't move well enough. They don't have all the fundamental pieces. They can't crawl. They can't script. They can't jump. They can't do a push-up. They can't hold a plank position. So you got to knock out all those things first before we start worrying about drills that look like golf, because you're just quite simply not going to make big improvements going in that order. So long story short, end of rant. Golfers training the elite golfer, they need to move well within the context of their sport and swing. They need to be strong as an athlete, not just as a golfer. And we need to respect what their swing needs, their individual needs are for their swing.